Testing, testing, testing.
Hello, Luis.
How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we've got 3 people in the waiting room, but I'm not sure if they're, you want me to just wait until we start to let them in?
Right. Yeah, I think we should ask them to wait. And Dr. Veshimov, he emailed me this morning and he said he would be here by 4:30. So we hope that he does join in. I'm just checking. I'm looking at the YouTube page. Appears my name. I was trying to see if I put something on the screen in the meantime, but it seems it's working there. But I guess I'm the only one that is watching it. We got it listed in the Scholars of Risk main page, the national page,
Yes.
but the YouTube part.
Oh, great.
So I gave that to the organizer there of the lecture series, Madeline.
That's great.
Mhm. Okay, so I'm looking here at my notes for start. Dean Rom will do the opening, and I have here. I think we're ready just to have him, our speaker. I wonder of how many we're going to have to direct to the YouTube page, because I believe because you are how you call that, a co-host, you were able to sign in directly. But I think soon other people that are going to be stopped there at the wait list, and I don't know when we can see if there you are accounts or not. I wonder.
Well, if we've got it on the national YouTube channel, though, there's a chance that there could be some non-New York folks joining, correct?
Okay, yeah. Oh, it's streaming now. There's a delay. I just got your hello, Luis. I don't know if you heard that. Yeah, like 5 minutes after that.
Oh my gosh.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we've got 3 people in the waiting room, but I'm not sure if they're, you want me to just wait until we start to let them in?
Right. Yeah, I think we should ask them to wait. And Dr. Veshimov, he emailed me this morning and he said he would be here by 4:30. So we hope that he does join in. I'm just checking. I'm looking at the YouTube page. Appears my name. I was trying to see if I can put something on the screen in the meantime, but it seems it's working there. But I guess I'm the only one that is watching it. We got it listed in the Scholars of Risk main page. And okay, that's all the lag. If you can hear, it's about 2-minute lag. I don't know how can we get this going. But anyway, so I have his.
Do you have a cell phone number to contact him, maybe to send a text?
Yes, I do. Let me send him a text.
Is it possible he could have emailed you? I don't know if he may be having some difficulty signing on since.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
Checking the email, and I have the phone to see if he's. Oh, 1 second. Okay, let's see. There's Kurt.
Okay.
Yeah, so let him come in. Hello, Kurt. Oh, can't hear you. The microphone. Your mic is off.
Hello, Dr. Restrepo. How are you?
Good, good. How are you?
Doing all right. No complaints.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah,
Looking forward to the event.
absolutely. Yeah. We think that Dr. Beshimov should have been here a little while ago. He emailed me this morning and sent them the information from before. And so I just text him right now. So
Okay.
hopefully he will answer in a minute. And
Well, if not, you can give the lecture.
yeah, we'll see how can we hold the fort, talk a little bit about scholars at risk. Hey, the opening reception went really well, the open event, it was very powerful with the music and amazing. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah,
That was the Monday
I thought it
one.
went well as well. It actually went smoother than a live thing went because it could be coordinated and choreographed much better, was rehearsed, edited, put together. So,
Okay. We are streaming in YouTube,
okay.
and but there's a lag about 2 minutes. So if you open to the law school or something, you can see that that YouTube. I have it there just to see, but because we are supposed to get also more information. But I'm concerned that so very few people are there on the wait list by now. And let me send you the link for this.
Oh, I can see it. It shows up on the screen how to log
Okay,
into
yeah,
YouTube.
you see it there.
Yeah, it's nice that we can do that.
Okay. And Bob is there on call.
I am here.
Oh,
I
there you are.
just wanted to pop on and say that as soon as your keynote speaker shows up, I can make him a host, so he'll have the ability to share his screen and all that.
Okay, good.
But until he's here, I can't
Right. And
click on him.
I think I'm gonna have to call him. So because he's not answering the text that I sent him a while ago. But let me send him also an email right now.
Excellent.
Bob, do you know how can we tell if the people that are waiting there are from UA or how do we see the email?
Unfortunately, I have no way of doing that. I don't think, unless you just recognize a name or have a list to check it against, you're probably just going to have somebody let them in and be prepared to kick them out if they're a problem.
Right. Yeah. So I think that is maybe for next, we have to go to the one that is called the webinar, Zoom webinar. I think it's the easiest one. Oh, there's the JD. How are you? Okay. Yes, Dr. Beshimov, this is Luis Restrepo. How- Okay. Okay. Is- Oh, the email and password. I mean, it should be your Zoom account. Are you opening your Zoom account? One second, yes. Okay.
Hey, Julie.
Robert,
Yes.
okay, there he is. Okay, Amit. Okay. Oh, I was just checking. He was having to have a password, but I guess he got in there now. So we just have to admit him. Okay, I'm gonna hang the phone. Okay, welcome.
Okay, do you see me?
Not yet. I think that, let me see. Yes, there you are.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Beshimov. And we should be starting shortly. Is we still have a few minutes. We haven't brought in anyone from the audience yet with us here. We have Dean Kurt Rom, the Associate Dean of Graduate and International Education, and also Julie Olsen from the Graduate School as well, and JD Loreto, who is the President of the Graduate Student Congress. And Robert is with us in the technical support. Okay, so Robert is going to give you permission to be co-host, so you can share the screen whenever we get started. We are streaming in YouTube, as you can see, and this was posted also in the Scholars of Risk page. So we hope to have some audience. Dr. Dean Rom will do the general introduction as soon as we get started and admit the audience. And then I'll talk a little bit about Scholars of Risk and then introduce you.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Do you have any question at this moment? Or?
No, just I'm waiting. When I will start, I would like to just share my PowerPoint slide. It, I hope will make my explanation more accessible and easier. And that's it.
Right. And Julie and JD are going to help. They're going to be looking at the chat for the questions. So they moderate the questions, the Q&A, as we talked about it. So we will begin, shortly with the lecture. So we're getting Ted Swedenberg and other of our participants.
Dr. Beshimov, do you see a share screen button at the? It should be in the bottom center of your screen. Should be green.
Yeah, just a moment.
If you click on that, it should let you pick your PowerPoint.
Yes.
There it is. Excellent.
Yes. Do you see it?
Yes, we do.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I don't hear what happened. I don't know. I don't hear. Which
I don't believe anyone's talking at the moment. So there's not much to hear.
Oh,
okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Beshimov, if it would be okay for you to wait until you start to share the screen.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So we can have the screen for the introductions, and then once you're ready to start, you share the screen.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Okay.
Should I remove this?
Yeah. So just stop sharing screen, so you know that once you get to start.
Be a button in the same spot where you shared it should unshare.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Koski, for joining us, and Ted too. See, Padma is coming. So I guess it's 5 o'clock.
I might wait 2 or 3 minutes. I know people kind of sometimes struggle to get on Zoom. It takes a few minutes.
Right.
Even I had to find the link. I didn't put it on my calendar correctly. I had half the message. So let's give everybody a few minutes.
Okay.
Louise, I'm about to call Dr. Bennett. He's having some difficulty logging on.
Okay. And Kurt, do you want me to introduce you and then, or will you start right on? Okay. Bob, do you know there's a lag in the YouTube about a few minutes?
Yes. When we did our testing last week, it was about 30 to 45 seconds. I'm guessing it depends on bandwidth at YouTube and a lot of other factors that we just can't control. So if you're trying to watch both, it's going to be very confusing, but most people shouldn't be doing both.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. I am. No, just to.
I was too for a little bit and quickly turned one of them down.
Yeah. So. If JD, if you would look at the Zoom, if there's any point for people to ask questions.
Dr. Restrepo, do you want me to go ahead and admit anyone who's waiting in the waiting room?
Should we do that? Yep.
It's up to you. I can wait.
Yes. Well, I
Okay.
think that, yeah, let's it's 5:05. So let's
I
let
think
them
we should start.
get started. We can, yeah.
All right, here they
Yeah,
come.
we got some more coming.
And Louise, you just tell me when.
Okay. Perhaps we should wait a couple of minutes. Now that we let some of the people that are in the waiting room and keep watching the waiting room. Thank you, everyone that you just joined. Because of the sign up difficulties, we're just giving a couple of minutes more for the people to come into the room. And we'll be starting shortly.
Professor Bennett, welcome.
Thank you, Julie. I finally got here.
Welcome, welcome, Professor Bennett.
Hello, Luis.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, Kurt.
Hello, Dr. Bennett. It's great to see you.
Thank you. Nice to be here. Welcome to our guest.
Thank you.
And we're going to start right on, if we can wait until 5:10.
Okay.
Maybe 4 minutes more, and we'll get started with the program.
Okay.
So please be patient, everyone in the audience. Thank you for joining us. Yesterday, we got the interview with Ozark at Large. If you haven't seen that, there is the podcast. So I don't know if they're going to replay that. Sometimes they replay part of it. We should be getting ready to start. It's almost 5:10. So, Vinram.
When I see it hit 5:10, I'll start. Okay, colleagues and friends, welcome to you all. Thank you for being here for this event and participating in an important activity of International Education Week. I'm Kurt Rome. I'm the Associate Dean for International Education. And tonight I'm joined by Dr. Pat Koski, Dean of the Graduate School in International Education. Welcome. We request that you mute your microphone, but please feel free to share comments and questions in the chat box, which will be monitored. Academic freedom is important to us. Freedom of thought and expression is a hallmark of public higher education in America. To some extent, it's why many of us have chosen this profession and a public university like this institution. Intellectual freedom is valued at the University of Arkansas. Therefore, it is only appropriate and fitting that our university would join with other universities around the world in pursuit of freedom and support of threatened and silenced scholars from around the world through the International Scholars at Risk Program and Scholars Network. Being a university affiliate of the Scholars at Risk Program is both an honor, but also a responsibility. The University of Arkansas has a volunteer committee of faculty who provide campus leadership to this program. Every year, as part of International Education Week, our campus hosts an international scholar at risk to hear their story and to remind us of the importance of intellectual freedom and free speech. Tonight's event is titled the Dr. Dick Bennett Scholars at Risk Lecture Series. Through a generous gift of Dr. Bennett, costs associated with this program and lecture are underwritten. Dr. Bennett was a longtime U of A faculty member, and during that time and his tenure, he was a champion of academic freedom, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate action. While on campus, he was both an active scholar and a faculty leader. Since his retirement, he's been active in our community as a leader, especially through the Fayetteville Omni Center. Dr. Bennett, we are so grateful for your leadership, and we acknowledge this tonight. We're grateful for what you did on our campus and in our community, and for your continuing support of intellectual inquiry and academic freedom, along with freedom of expression through your generous support of the Scholars at Risk program. The Scholars at Risk on campus has important co-sponsors that support the program, including tonight, Graduate School in International Education, the Graduate and Professional Student Congress, the Asian Studies Program, the King Fahd Center for Middle East Studies, the School of Law, and the Comparative Literature and Cultural Studies Program, and of course, the Dr. Dick Bennett Scholars at Risk Endowment. I want to thank all of the members of the Scholars at Risk Faculty Committee. Thank you for keeping this event and this activities alive and reminding us of our freedoms. Especially, I extend my gratitude to Dr. Louise Restrepo, the chair of the Scholars at Risk Committee. At this time, it's my pleasure to turn the program over to Dr. Restrepo. Please help me welcome him for the introduction.
Thank you, Dean Rom. Thank you, Dean Koski, for being here, for everyone, our speaker. I will briefly introduce our speaker. I want to say also thanks to the committee members, Scholars at Risk here, Professor Ted Swedenberg in anthropology, Padma Visawathan in English, and Jane D. Loreto in the Student Congress. And to everyone that is here, thank you. Dr. Bennett, you're always an inspiration, searching for justice in this work. Definitely, Scholars at Risk is much needed. This is an international organization of more than 350 institutions worldwide. They do an annual report on threats to scholars. And what they say, every time there's a scholar that is censored or threatened or has to be displaced, we are censored too, because we don't get to hear that. We also have joining us Michael Freeman from the Office of International Students and Scholars, who is also one of our committee members. Okay, so it is a pleasure, and every year we have invited some speakers from Bangladesh, from China, from Zimbabwe, from Syria, and also Pakistan. This year we have, and from different disciplines. So this is something that academic freedom affects across the board in the different disciplines. This is something that we should be watching. Professor and Dr. Batibek Beshimov is a faculty member of the Global Studies and International Relations program at Northeastern University. He has extensive experience in international diplomacy, politics, education, and development. Dr. Beshimov played a crucial role in formulating development policy in Central Asia as a national manager for the United Nations Fergana Valley Development Program and the UNDP Life program in the 1990s. He was twice elected to the Parliament of Kyrgyzstan, where he served as leader of the opposition faction and a parliament representative to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. In diplomacy, Dr. Beshimov served as the ambassador of Kyrgyzstan to India, Sri Lanka, Nepal, Bangladesh, and was the representative of Kyrgyzstan Parliament in the Organization for Security and Economic Cooperation in Europe. He was awarded the prestigious Reagan Faschel Democracy Fellowship by the U.S. National Endowment for Democracy in 2010. From 2010 to 2015, he was a visiting professor at Harvard University's David Center for Russian and Euro-Asian Studies, MIT's Center for International Studies, and Suffolk University's Government Department. He also served as Provost Vice President for Academic Affairs of the American University in Central Asia and President of the Osh State University. Dr. Beshimov is the author of 4 books, including Fergana Valley, The Heart of Central Asia, and a frequent contributor to international media. His articles have been published in the Wall Street Journal, Transitions Online, The Diplomat Magazine, Asia Times, Al Jazeera, and Open Democracy. Please help me welcoming Dr. Beshimov. Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much for a nice introduction. And I'm extremely happy to be with you. And I have 2 serious reasons to say about that. The first, I am a part of International Education Week, and I recognize international education as one of the greatest assets of the United States. I lived and worked in many countries, traveled to European countries, worked with them, created partnership of my universities with European universities. I spent 5 wonderful years in South Asia and visited many universities. For instance, Jawaharlal Nehru University in India, in Pakistan, in Sri Lanka. And I monitored development projects in Africa, in Jamaica, in our countries. And the last 11 years, I am living in the United States, and I spent very valuable time at Harvard University, MIT. I'm blessed by my work at Northeastern University. And I would like to say that I have reason to compare diverse body of students and faculty in the United States University. It's a greatest assets of this country. The second reason is last year I organized a special survey among my former students. And I asked them one simple question: how you benefited from the diverse body of students when you were the students at Northeastern University. And in College of Professional Studies, students mostly pursue careers in diplomacy, international relations, and many of them today work in foreign services of their countries and public institutions. And the overwhelming majority of the students, they underline the importance of studying something with the students from our countries. I created special assignments focusing on a group work in order to give students the chance to understand the culture, mindset, and different approaches to very complex issues. And students, they wrote me that they benefited greatly from this cultural diversity, because today it is more easier for them, and more it creates the right environment for effective accomplishment of their task when they are diplomats or they are working in international NGOs in the developing countries. That's why I am really extremely happy to be among the very knowledgeable people, highly educated. And that's why today I would like to share my views on freedom, and one of the ramification of freedom, academic freedom. And given that I am among highly educated people, I would like to create my narrative on stories from my family and myself. There are a lot of books about former Soviet Union, about Central Asia, but I prefer personal stories, because personal stories can create a very special understanding of issues. I would like to share my PowerPoint slides, and you can see that in the front page, it's images of a Statue of Liberty for obvious reason, and Freedom Index this year. And you can see that Central Asia mostly in non-free space. And on the left side, the golden statue of a former president of Turkmenistan. Why I decided to put these images in the front page, I will explain later on. I would like to start with Hegel's contradiction between freedom and authority and its current resolution in post-Soviet Central Asia. And during my explanation, I will share my answers to these two key questions. Why is academic freedom an ostracized idea and principle in this region? And secondly, how this state of academic freedom affects the development and understanding of societies. As you know, post-Soviet Central Asia is the debris of the Soviet Union. The 5 newly independent states are the successors of the Soviet totalitarianism and universalism. They reinvented the cult of personality as the core of a dictatorial and authoritarian regimes. That's why I put it with this golden statue of the former president of Turkmenistan in a front page, because it symbolizes the attitude to power, attitude to the society, and why my personal story of my family explains why they reinvented or reanimated this cult of personality. My father, he was the son of wealthy people who found their fortune before Bolsheviks in farming and trade. They exported dry fruits and became wealthy people, and they had resources to invest in the education of their kids. When Bolsheviks came to power, we started nationalization of assets of wealthy people. And my grandfather and other farmers in this region realized that they not only lost their assets, farms and businesses, but control over their private life and destiny. My grandfather, Beshem, from name of him derives my last name, was arrested in 1937. And since then, we know nothing about him. And together with millions of Soviet citizens, he was killed by the communists and the dogma of communist ideology, by the belief that one thinking can be superior to any other and can explain everything. People like my grandfather were degraded to the level of enemies because they failed to understand the supremacy of this ideology. His two kids, my father, who was 9 years old, and his sister, 6 years old, became orphans. And the communist system educated them in a such way that they ought to be grateful to the Soviet state. They were forced to learn that their personal losses are insignificant if their entire nation benefited greatly from a communist system. My father, who became a literature professor, tended to believe that the Soviet system was the best available option for our nation. Russia colonized our home region, Central Asia, and when the American Revolution cut off the import of cotton, Russia started to transform our region into a giant cotton plantation. The Bolsheviks continued this business and turned the region's agrarian societies into Soviet-style modern nations with almost perfect literacy. Incredible achievements in human development created an understanding of benign colonization. The idea that powerful nations, for the sake of progress, can impose their will on weak societies continues to persist and even thrive today. In the Soviet Union, the idea was reinforced by the idea that the communist dream is the end of history. According to their belief, sooner or later, communism would be the only universal explanation of everything and humanity's way of life. This thinking, as you see, parallels the thinking of Francis Fukuyama on the end of history. Both focus on the universal pattern of the world. Communist universalism naturally extended to an idea that communists, for the sake of progress, should not be merciful to those who are against them, who challenge them. My grandfather, as those who knew him, started to challenge Bolsheviks' policy. He was skeptical about the idea of equality, and he was persecuted for that. This kind of transmogrification can occur with any other system of ideas without critical analysis. For all zealots, communism has created a great sense of certainty. Since communism is a final destination, the peak of human social and political achievement, hence the mission of a Soviet man is active participation in the manifestation of that predetermined way of development. We were convinced that the system always cares about us, that it cannot make mistakes, and that's universal and ubiquitous. Later, after the collapse of the communist system, when many lost that great sense of certainty, they suffered from psychological trauma and sank into a deep depression. That's why Putin regrets about the lost world of communism. Socialism and communism as ideologies continue to captivate people's minds who believe in social justice and equality. Some name this phenomenon as socialism with human face. But we saw this face in practice of Soviet Gulag and Maoist cultural revolution. When I was a student at the history department and carefully listening to the professors, I understood that the idea of history makes sense if it is connected to communism as the only and final destination of human reasoning and practice. Our task was to understand and support the communist approach to everything. At the university, we had disciplines on dialectical and historical materialism, science-based communism, political economy, and various history courses. All knowledge about humanity and society was narrowed to justify the ideology of a communist party and the opinion of authority. Over the decades, this instrumental approach to knowledge weakened people's ability to think critically, and it formed a hierarchical perception of reality. Above knowledge were undeniable absolute truths of a communist troika, Karl Marx, Friedrich Engels, and Vladimir Lenin. They were the gods of the atheist society. The Soviet Union collapsed. The new states were founded, but the dogmatic mindset reinvented itself in new forms of existence. And therefore, Central Asia, as well as our many remains of former Soviet, have these same core features. Politically, let's see, hegemony of authoritarian regimes and strongman rule. Economically, it's a state capitalism and dominance of oligarchy. Socially, it's inequality and poverty, and ideological state-supported nationalism. And as you can see, in the post-Soviet world, Hegel's contradiction between freedom and authority has been mostly resolved in the authority's interest at the expense of liberty. And the ruling elites promote their narratives and preferences instead of having debates and supporting the ability to question things. Their prime argument is that freedom in the lack of constraining state control can lead to disorder. In the 90s, I was invited to the International Education Commission of Aga Khan Foundation. Our task was to create an educational program and just the main parameters of a new liberal university in Central Asia. We plan to meet all high officials in Central Asian countries. And we had one very interesting meeting with the Prime Minister of Tajikistan, who paid earnest attention to our project. But when he asked about the mission of university, one of our members told that the main mission of university to prepare the new leaders of the country. And suddenly his face became very red. And with angry voice, he told us, we don't need new leaders because we already have a leader. A few years ago, Tajikistan adopted a law granting the president a lifelong term. And it's another story about that. 2 years ago, I participated in a conference on the rule of law in Central Asia, organized by Cornell University in partnership with Nazarbayev University in Kazakhstan. The president of Kazakhstan, Nazarbayev, is rare among the leaders in post-Soviet countries in developing his country's higher education in close engagement with Western universities. It is an oil-rich country and has resources to invest in higher education. He founded a university named after him that invites Western professors to teach there with good benefits. And this created the side effects for academic freedom. At this conference, I observed that the self-restraint of scholars could limit academic freedom. Some Western scholars subtly tried to persuade conference participants that those who study corruption in Kazakhstan should understand the concerns and consider the government's opinion. When I, 2 years ago, participated in a conference with very recent PhD graduates, I understood that job market for PhDs in humanities and social sciences really very limited. And that's why this kind of reality affects the thinking of scholars. Unfortunately, they restrain themselves, even if they see very convincing research findings, they hesitate to release them or to tell them openly due to their good benefits. Today, besides liberal arts colleges in Central Asia, such as American University, Central Asia, Aga Khan Foundation University, Westminster International University, Uzbekistan, in all traditional universities and institutions, academic freedom as a principle, as an idea, is not legalized and institutionalized. And I would like just to provide some evidence of that. I spent many years in higher education, traveled to all these countries, created a partnership with some universities in these countries. And I decided to add to this practical experience some research. I pick up from each country 4 universities and try to understand what do they think about academic freedom, how they express their understanding of academic freedom in universities, documents, materials. And I Google all of these universities, and you can see many universities, this is typical picture. Many universities even fail to mention academic freedom as a principle. Academic freedom as one of the important foundational principles in academic process doesn't exist. How to understand this neglect? And you can see in comparison with American university, where you can find a lot of documents, a lot of materials about academic freedom, but it is very unique. And that's why it's not only up to the authorities' policies. Unfortunately, academic world in these countries, especially in traditional institutions, they reconstructed the walls of dogma. As I mentioned, academic freedom is not legalized and institutionalized in these universities. Authorities reimpose a hierarchical perception of reality, the remake of old communist universalism that sees the world through a hierarchy of ideas. And inevitably, the ideological and instrumental approach to knowledge weakens the ability of people to think critically. High education produces unreflective thinkers whose reasoning comprises stereotypes, oversimplifications, sweeping generalizations, illusions, and false dilemmas. When I was vice president of American University Central Asia, I had a meeting with the Minister of Education, Higher Education, and his deputies. The purpose was to get a license for provision of educational services. And discussing this issue with them, I realized that their prime concern is to control the university. They had a strong suspicion that national interest would be sacrificed for the dominance of Western ideology. The idea that a university should include studies of various systems of ideas, theories, critical assess them also, did not get their support because they thought that preference should be given to national ideology. I realized that this perception is a new form of old communist universalism that sees the world through a hierarchy of ideologies. Central Asia, since independence, has been experiencing the renaissance of Islam. Madrasas and mosques are mushrooming everywhere. When I was president of Walsh University, I decided to establish a divinity department. The idea was to pursue an enlightened attitude toward Islam and prevent the spread of radical dogmatic ideas. The choice of Turkey as a secular Muslim state as a key contributor to this project was natural. We got generous offers from a theocratic state, but we decided just to make partnership with Turkey, given the secular nature of this state. It was important for us to create the right balance between religion and secular institutions. We offered to enrich the curriculum by courses on the history of all world religions and Western civilization's history. But we had a difficult time with a group of intellectual people who believed that their religion could not be lost among many others, and preference should be given to their choice. The result is, you see, was not hard to predict. Instead of being intellectual barrier against radicalism, many students graduated with one-sided views that supported fallacies and dogmatism. So I discovered over the years that we have a segment of society, and it probably exists almost everywhere in the world, that promotes the hegemony of their preferences. When this segment becomes the majority or gets power, the temptation to ostracize opponents arises instead of having debates and accommodating the interests of a minority. In the United States, I taught 2 years, different courses. And I discovered that some groups of instructors and students are inclined to explain Latin American and Asian countries' history primarily through a lens of colonialism and anti-imperialistic national liberation movements, arguing that leftist ideologies are natural choice. History, I think, is much more complex, and students should choose to study from different perspectives. We should learn, I think, about the consequences when we glorify different ideologies and globalization. It's no secret that today academic freedom in the United States has been affected by the contestation between liberals, conservatives, nationalists, Democrats, left, right-wing movements. I think that university should frame the debates between competing views so that it would be useful for better understanding of ourselves. Our appeal to students to experiment with truth, armed with reliable and efficient methodology, compelling evidence, and a system of facts is getting less relevant when the state machine runs on a lie and a dominant dogmatic force occupies the public space. In the 90s, in my home country, Kyrgyzstan, when I was member of parliament, I was a part of a team which prepared the draft law on higher education. The most noisy group was nationalist at that time. And for me, it was important to understand their concerns. And I believe that if they are not propagating ethnic discrimination, hatred, and violence against ethnic minorities, they could be one of our nation-building forces. The problem was in the understanding of their true intentions. At the onset of our dialogue, I understood that their philosophy includes unquestionable primacy of Kyrgyz national interests in all spheres of society, because falsely invented threats of extinction occupied their minds. Since then, I am witnessing the proliferation of this philosophy, at the heart of which the idea of one group's dominance. Kyrgyzstan experienced two tragic ethnic clashes in the 90s and 2010, which involve a large number of students and faculty. Kyrgyzstan is not unique in that manifestation. The United States also in front of this emerging challenge. So I would like to conclude my narrative with these remarks. I understood that academic freedom rests on freedom as a foundational principle of a free society, and it also enriches the meaning of freedom. Our ability to question things is more significant than any ideology and politics, and always conflicts with them. Nothing in the realm of freedom is fixed forever. And even advanced democracies in a state of retreat cannot guarantee the sustainability of academic freedom and freedom at large. Thank you for your attention, and I'm ready for your questions.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Beshimov. If anyone wants to ask a question, you can ask directly or also through the chat. In the meantime, while you type, I can start with one question, Dr. Beshimov. Thank you very much for that presentation that took us with all your experience in different countries and your concerns and your reflections also on the United States on academic freedom. I should start with just a comment. I did the search in our university, and at the University of Arkansas, 258 instances of academic freedom, both words. So I'm glad that we have that, and perhaps that's one reason we're having this conversation today. And I don't take that for granted. I know that where I'm come from in Colombia, it's been tough for some people to speak from one side or the other. And I've listened to speakers that said, we want a civil society, civil solution to the armed conflict. And at the time that the country was supporting an army from the left and an army from the right, and we said we need a civil society. That speaker, that was an academic, Hector Abad, he was killed the next week, and it was very impressive to me how can it is. So these are the realities we live with, and we have to grapple. So it's incredible that you come from this family that has had different relationships inside the families, that we see the tensions. Your father with as a literary scholar that had some belief in the state system, and your grandfather with another perspective. So and I understand that complete search for knowledge is an ongoing process, that we don't have an absolute truth. No one has an absolute truth to really demeanor other perspectives, and that's why we have to keep them open. So I understand you mentioned the instrumentalization of knowledge in terms of being a national ideology. In the United States, I mean, we see some of those things too, but we also see the market, things that do not make sort of a profit. And one of our philosophers, Martha Nussbaum, has a book on the defense of the humanities that is not for profit. How do you see that tension in post-Soviet Asia and also in the United States? That demand of useful knowledge that feeds into the market and instrumentalizes our students that choose their careers for the economic security, which is authority and freedom, but also freedom and security, and usually means being part of the system, not questioning the system.
Thank you for asking this question. In a post-Soviet area, namely in Central Asia, you can see different spaces for freedom and for academic freedom particularly. For instance, in some countries, like my home country, freedom is relatively better. In other countries, it's impossible, like Turkmenistan. In other countries, like Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, limited, very limited. Why? It is two main reasons. Ruling elites, they prefer create their own narrative about history of a country, about strategic course of a country, ideology of a country, and so on. That's why their main ideology is just nationalism in their own interpretation. And for researchers, it's very difficult to challenge their narratives because it's a risky business. Secondly, the second reason, it is, the realities of life when scholars prefer to be loyal or to prefer to support the official narrative, and they do not put themselves at risk, questioning things. That's why it's very difficult to be independent and present your views as it is on the basis of evidence, on the basis of solid research. That's why it is so important to support scholars from these countries who cannot continue their research, who cannot produce and release their research. And that's why I just would like to express my gratitude for the support of a Scholars at Risk program, for hosting me, and I hope that American University will continue to support scholars from different parts of the world we cannot do the research due to the restrictive policies of authorities.
Okay, thank you. If anyone has other questions?
Dr. Viswanathan?
Dr. Beshimov, I thought it was a brilliant talk, particularly in the ways that you moved rhetorically from your family stories out toward these, much broader international questions. And particularly, following on, Luis Fernando asked a question related to mine. You, at a certain point, you said that higher education in the transition from communism to post-communism has led to stereotyping, to oversimplification, to illusions. And being here in a public university in a conservative state where the humanities are continually, it seems, devalued and under assault, it seemed to me that this was also a natural result of late stage capitalism, right? That this is a place where these extremes seem to be meeting, is in the devaluation of debate and an emphasis on the idea that education should not be about independent thought, but rather about practicalities, not just in the life of the scholar, but actually in the life of the students who we graduate. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, particularly maybe out of your experiences internationally and also with institution building.
Thank you for this question. I am teaching different courses at Northeastern University, and given the background of an expectation of my students, I created special cases in order to give them different views on very complex issues. For instance, I accumulated my experience of monitoring projects in developing countries and created cases on World Bank policies in some developing countries. And when some, let's say, with limited knowledge tend to glorify deeds of international financial institutions, say, look, okay, if non-educated people do that, it is understandable, but we are here in a class. And that's why we need to forget about our political affiliations, ideological, religious, and so on. We need to focus on good research, on methodology, on evidence, on facts, on a system of facts, our ability to check them, to challenge them, to analyze them. And after that, we can make our conclusions. But it should not be some kind of absolute conclusion, no, because over time we can get more evidence and it can challenge our perception about this issue. Therefore, I'm saying, please, we can see that both sides, dark and bright side of the issue, but mostly, if you look at solid research, find that you can see that many of these complex issues exist in a gray zone, and you should understand complexity of these issues. I mentioned about the leftist ideologies, and looking at the history of developing countries from, let's say, anti-imperialistic movements views. I say it is only one approach, or it's only one perspective. We need to look to another perspectives too. And I mentioned about definition benign colonization. You know, it is a serious issue today. And the scholars from developing countries telling about that. But I'm trying to explain to my students that, okay, how we can just assess the idea that stronger or developed nation can or should impose their will on our nations, saying that they are weak and so on. Is it how we can justify it, and so on. And I do not prefer to look at things from only one particular side, from the perspective of Western outlook or Eastern outlook. No, from different points. I give you one more example. Recently, we had a very interesting event on China. We discussed how ideologically different the United States and China can cooperate with each other. Is conflict between them is inevitable, and so on. And we invited Professor, Harvard Professor Ezra Vogel, who published the seminal books on Deng Xiaoping, Chinese leadership, and so on. The group of Chinese students started to propagate the official view. It's an ideology of the Communist Party of China. And I say it's a huge problem. Why? Because at universities and we are as students, we need to learn things on the basis of evidence and critical thinking. That's very important. But if we, for instance, look at these things for one-sided, or after just trying to with a false sense of patriotism, we will not get the right knowledge, and we will create new fallacies. And it's very problematic for the destiny of the nation. That's why I think that this kind of attitude, very critical attitude, is so important. And I think critical thinking is also is an acute issue in the United States universities also. Given this is partisanship divide, we should ask why we just should ignore the clear facts, evidence, and just to be attained to certain ideology or policy only because we belong to it.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we are coming to the close of the hour that we've had for this conversation. Some students or other ones may have other commitments. So we may stay for a couple of minutes. I don't know if Dr. Beshimov could stay for if anyone has another question, but please join me in thanking Dr. Beshimov for this brilliant perspective that he provides for our academic freedom today. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for coming. Please stay a couple of minutes if you still have a question.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Dr. Beshimoff. That was very interesting, informative, and thought-provoking, as well as to some extent heart-touching. So thank you very much for sharing that with us.
Thank you.
I'm started with the conversation. I'm sorry. I kept thinking of Kant. You know, Kant had this on the academic freedom, the freedom of the faculties, and he got in trouble basically for speaking and talking as a state employee of a state university against the SAR. You know, so he said, you know, basically the response of academic freedom. He could be very academic, free, but within the university, not questioning outside. But Derrida also comes up with academic freedom as an absolute. We should really have the opportunity to inquire any topic with no restriction whatsoever. So the concept of an absolute. And I always think that one of the big challenge here, as we think of the meaning of what we do, that is an epistemological, is a commitment to truth. But there is also an ethical commitment, you know, knowledge for whom and for what and for how many. So I think that these are two competing kind of interests, and they should be lined up, the epistemological and the ethical. But they don't always line up when we think about, what kind of research would lead into, I don't know, some ethical issues as well. So we still have to grapple those, especially as universities, as you mentioned, the elite, the national elite, as having a higher education in many countries today in the world. We are part of an elite. And we are privileged.
I completely agree with you. And, if we see this world during our lifetime, we can see that many things change and nothing is fixed. Capitalism today in America is different capitalism 20 years ago. And it's changing. And if, for instance, we are not helping students to think critical, to assess from different perspectives, how we can prepare them to the life ahead of us. Once with my grandkids, the kids, I visited in San Francisco, wonderful place, Exploratorium. And I look and saw interesting place where they underline the importance of personal stories. And I told to my granddaughter, please, Maria, do you have your own stories? And after this visit, I would like you to tell me these stories, because it's so important for them to assess things and to create their own stories, their own understandings. And afterward to see how over time their stories changing, how their perceptions changing. This is the most important thing. That's why communicating with my former students, I am asking the question and trying to understand how their perception changing after the graduation. Did they, as a faculty, did they do a good job and help them to be close to real life and to have much needed skills in order to be successful, effective, and so on?
Beautiful. If there are no further thoughts, I want to close the meeting and thank again Dr. Beshimov and for this conversation. And thank you all.
Thank you very much. I'm very, very grateful to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you. We enjoyed this very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.